Hello everyone, I'm Nick from nextstepnick.com. I'm joined today by Vicky again.
Hey guys.
Hello, and we're going to go through all of this week's news. We've had a bit of an issue with Discord because that's how we record. We run everything through Discord and then we record everything and put it together. But that was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was great fun, and I thought I'd broken my laptop and was about to lose my mind. So thank you, Discord. You nearly made me cry.
Yep, really appreciate it. I think it's one of those things where it's always the same with like technical stuff. Like that's one of the things that always freaks me out is whenever it's stuff like audio recording or visual recording. I've had so many issues before that I'm so paranoid about it. I mean, I recorded a game before for an hour, and then I realised that the recording software I use, because I've dabbled with everything. You know, I've used Elgatos and stuff. I've used OBS. I've used Mavivi. I've used all sorts of bits. And at one point I was recording and I didn't realise that although the game was running, for some reason my recording software was just recording like a static picture.
Oh god, especially after an hour as well.
I only found out when it got to editing, and I'd done like an hour's let's play, and I just thought, you know what? So I feel your pain so much because it stresses me out so much when it comes to anything like where you can't really see it happening at the time, like you can't actually see what's going on. I mean, I was saying I'm quite lucky because I've got this audio suite so I can see everything going in and out. But before that, I would have had no idea what was going on there. And I don't think we even figured out what it was in the end anyway, did we?
I had no idea what it was.
Yeah, well, never mind. Nice and positive.
And thanks to that, thank you, Discord. You made me miss Food Club, so if I miss out on my fictional gambling money because of this, I'm going to be sad. I blame Discord for making me lose money.
Well, in that vein, let's talk about something to cheer us up. Or I don't know how you feel about it, but I am still in awe of the Final Fantasy VII trailer that dropped the other day.
I am so glad they didn't cut Miss Cloud because I know a lot of people were worried about it, but it looks as ridiculous as the original game. And
I love it. I love the fact that they've gone with the whole like genderless thing. I think that bit where he says, I think it's something like true art is genderless, and I was like, it's such a cool way of bringing that up to date. And I know some people might be a bit like, oh no, you know, well, I don't subscribe to that, and that's fine if you don't. But at the same time, I think it's a really good move. And also, I love when Cloud has to dress up. I love that entire Don Corleone bit. I think it's great. But what did you think of the trailer?
Every time I'm like, I'm gonna wait, there's loads of games coming out, and then they just pop up with a new trailer, and I'm just like, god damn it, Square, like, I'm gonna buy this now.
Yeah, I'm very hyped.
Like, I was gonna be all sensible, I was gonna wait, you know, because originally it was clashing with Cyberpunk, but then you've got like, yeah, now it's gonna clash with Persona 5 The Royal, even more, because they're literally releasing with about a week of each other, and I'm just gonna be like, just gonna have to suck it up and bye-bye.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is that with me, I saw both coming out and I thought, right, I'm going to get both. Like, I want Cyberpunk. Not sure about Persona at the moment because I haven't finished the last Persona. I'm in two minds about that, but we can talk about that. But I'm looking forward to Final Fantasy because that for me is kind of like my childhood. There is a certain degree of nostalgia glasses, but I just think it's a great game. I just think it's a great game. I think the storyline is interesting. I think the characters are fantastic. I love it. I'm so keen to play it. I'm interested in how they've rewritten the story. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I've been hearing that.
Yeah. Basically, they've added some bits in. From what I've heard that Midgar is basically this next instalment because we're getting like an episodic release. I know they've added a character called Roach, who is like yes, he is a soldier third class who is basically like in there to hound Cloud a little bit and give him a bit of grief. But
I got all excited because I thought it might have been Kunsel from Crisis Core. It's not Kunsel, and I just got really excited from it, and they're like, nah, it's this random dude you've never heard of.
They've added a load of basically like new content because, of course, with the game being the size it is and spread over so much, I think they've added new like episodic content, like little side quests and stuff, which is cool. But one thing they have done, which I think is weird, and I don't know how they're doing this, maybe it's like trailer manipulation, maybe it doesn't happen, but there's a moment in this where you see Sephiroth.
Oh wait, was in this trailer or was it in the first one? Because I know, so me and my flatmate had a lot of discussions about this, and I was just like, it's Cloud hallucinating in the first trailer. and he's adamant that it's just Sephiroth showing up to screw with Cloud's head. But yeah, because do we even see him in the first disc?
You do. You see him in. We're going to get into Final Fantasy territory here. I'm not going to put up a skip just because this game has been out for.
It's like 20 years old.
Yeah. This. if you still don't know the spoilers for this, you're welcome to skip past this. But let's be honest, you can't really talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake without talking about the original Final Fantasy. So this is going to be spoiler laden. So. And continue at your own risk. Obviously, the remaster is going to do new things. We don't know anything about that really, but I'm just going to talk about what I think is. There are bits that I'm excited about and bits that I'm in two minds about. But yeah, basically, the clip that you see is in the original game. The moment you hear about Sephiroth for the first time is at Nibelheim. You go there, you hear about him. There's this whole legend of like Cloud tells the story about. How, well, I don't know if it is Nibelheim, but you go to a city and you hear about Nibelheim, what happened at Nibelheim, so like the fire, and you hear about Sephiroth for the first time. You don't actually properly understand how strong Sephiroth is, because the whole thing is that he's an enigma. Like, you see him, he fights off like a dragon that attacks in the flashback, and basically kills it after it's killed you, and that's impressive. And then later on, you see he's impaled the Midgardzolan, which is like this.
I was literally just going to say, I'm so excited to see that. Because, okay, full disclosure, I never actually played Final Fantasy VII on the PS1. I think I got through most of the first disc, got to Rocket Town, lost the car on the map, and then probably gave up. So, but I did see the Midgardzolan, and I was like, that is going to look incredible in 4K. I'm so excited for that.
Yeah, I think they do a really good job in the original release of 7, because 7 was my jam when I was a kid. And 7 and 8 I love, but I think it's... The whole thing is that the way they slowly tell you about Sephiroth, and the way you learn about him, you only see him like a few times, and it builds up this idea of him being super strong. Like, you see him beat this dragon, then you see him have this whole like problem in regard to how he's dealing with stuff. Then you see the Midgardzolan, and like... It's really, really... It just hits home how strong he is. Yeah, he comes across like this force of nature. And then in the remaster trailer I've seen, the remake trailer, someone pulled me up, by the way, for saying remaster rather than remake. Thank you for that. What you basically get is there's a bit where the original game, you fight against a boss, it blows up and knocks away the walkway below you, inside one of the reactors. Then Barrett and Tifa try to save you, but you fall off the edge, and that's where you meet Aerith and fall into her church.
Yeah.
In the remake, it looks like, one, they have grappling hooks, and two, he jumps to stab Sephiroth on the other side of a bridge.
Oh, this bit.
Their swords impact, yeah, and then the impact of the sword sends him back off the edge. So I don't know what they're doing with that, because it kind of ruins the surprise, like that slow drip feed of what Sephiroth is, if that is him.
Well, this was my angle, because I was like, because I know they're making changes to the story, which...
Yeah.
See, my main problem with this is because... So weirdly enough, I've only actually played the side games. So I've played most of Dirge of Cerberus, and obviously I've seen Advent Children because I was a 15-year-old weeb, so of course I've seen Advent Children. And I've played Crisis Core. Not more than once, mind you, because it made me cry, but I really liked all that. And apparently they're ditching all of the compilations, so anything that isn't the original canon game, so Advent Children, Crisis Core and Dirge of Cerberus, and probably Before Crisis, I think it's called, you know, the game that got made into an anime and something like that.
Yeah.
But all of that is being dumped as non-canon, which I'm not happy about, because, I mean, what are they going to do about Zack? Do we just get it merged into the main game? I mean, bloody hope so.
In the original game, he basically, his kind of role is you find out more about Zack as, this is like major, to be honest, like I said, we're going to be talking about Final Fantasy at length. There are going to be major spoilers here, so if you haven't played the game, then yeah, I would basically skip to, well, I'll tell you what, I will provide a timestamp, skip to the point that's now in the timestamp. But the major thing in the game is that you have all these memories from Nibelheim, for example, and then it turns out later that in actuality, Cloud wasn't where he was in Nibelheim. He was actually one of the guards, and one of the Shinra guards that accompanies Zack and Sephiroth, and he was too ashamed to take his helmet off. So he was never actually a soldier, but instead he was one of these many sort of clones of Sephiroth, like people that Hojo have experimented on. So he kind of has this calling towards Sephiroth, and that's why he keeps chasing him and why he's so obsessed with him, and that's why he's like... There are these black-robed guys in the game that have numbers on them. They're the same. They're basically, like, they're always seeking Sephiroth. They're a bit like clones as well, and they're kind of tracking him. And the whole thing is that Zack passes his memories on, obviously. Like, he says, oh, yeah, I live through you, Cloud, sort of thing. And then he dies in Crisis Core. I think it's Crisis Core, isn't it?
It is Crisis Core, because it upset me greatly.
Yeah, and then Cloud then takes on Zack's kind of memories and kind of acts like it is him. Like, he can live through, like, Zack's memories.
He kind of merges both, like, his personality and Zack's personality into one.
Yeah, and the weird thing about that, though, is that's the whole thing with Aerith, because I never thought that Aerith and he had a very good connection. To be honest, I always sort of thought Tifa was kind of Cloud's real sort of go-to. I thought she was great. And the whole thing is that that's Zack showing through, because Zack was originally Aerith's partner.
Yeah.
And, yeah, but the thing that I never understood, really, as a kid, is why Tifa doesn't ever turn around and go, you weren't there, what are you talking about?
No. Yeah, no, I don't get it either.
I think part of it is that, like, Cloud remembers stuff that he wouldn't otherwise remember, and I think Tifa kind of thinks, well, maybe he was there in some way or another. But there's this whole ambiguity to it. Like, it's interesting stuff, and I'm curious to see how they do it in the remake. But I don't quite know how they're going to tell parts of that story, because I don't mind too much. Don't get me wrong. I didn't really play Crisis Core or Dirge of Cerberus. I know what happens.
Oh, you're missing out.
I know what happens, but they were just things that came out on platforms I didn't have. I think it was like the PSP, and was it the PSP?
It was, so Dirge of Cerberus was the PS2, and then Crisis 4 is for the PSP, and apparently the reason they haven't remade that is because who was it? Nomura who did the design? I feel it was Nomura. Whoever put Genesis in there, who is modelled after Gact, which means there are licensing issues with it because they have to pay royalties for Gact every time they use his likeness, and they don't want to do that, so that's why we haven't got a remake yet.
I always thought that the whole Genesis thing is weird. I mean, I know they play back to, like, the whole thing of Loveless being in the original game and stuff, but I think the problem is that Final Fantasy VII is quite a neat game. Like, it's tied with a little bow and everything kind of... Most of the plot threads come together. There are bits that are kind of... I don't know, I'm not that keen on.
Yeah.
There are elements of the game where I think, like when I replay it, and I've replayed it a lot, there are bits where I get to and I think, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm trying to remember everything now on the spot, and it's kind of hard to put everything in order.
Yeah.
But there are moments that I think, yeah, this is not great. But the majority of the game I love, and I'm curious to see how they deal with that. I don't know about a few bits. I mean, one of the things that I don't get is I thought the original the first, I think it's 2 discs, the first part. I've heard as well, rumours, I've heard it's like 25 hours long or something like that, the first episode. I don't, if you do everything.
See, I'm not a fan of the episodic release. I'm really, really not. Just like, I know it's probably kind of a way of testing the waters, but we're going to end up paying 150 quid for this game if it even is going to be 3 parts. And it's just, I don't know whether it's just going to decrease the hype for it, because, I mean, how long are we going to have to wait for part 2?
Well, this is the thing, and also, the thing I didn't get was I assumed it was going to be Midgar, but it looks like, from what I can see, it goes as far as the fight with Genova, and the fight with Genova is at Union Harbour.
Oh, well, I think they said originally it was only going to be Midgar, and that's why they were, like, adding in all the extra stuff.
Yeah, well, the new footage from the trailer, they show the fight with Genova, and the fight with Genova occurs on the ship from Union Harbour. So, I don't know if that's a little clip from later on, I don't know. I don't know about... And there are some great voice actors, but I don't know how I feel about the English voice acting.
Really? I'm actually quite impressed by it. I quite like it.
It's cool. I recognise a few voices. There's one specific one, I believe I'm right in saying the voice for Red 13 is the English dub voice actor for Kagashi-sensei from Naruto.
Oh, okay. They said it was voicing Cloud. Because it's not Steve Burton, is it?
I'm not sure. I know that Quentin Flynn is voicing Reno.
Oh, okay. That's good then, because to be honest, I think it'd be a waste to change the voice actor. It's too iconic at this point.
I met with Quentin Flynn last year briefly. Really nice guy. I met with him, and he's a really nice bloke, but also he's quite eager to he's been quite eager to get back in there. So I think it's one of those things where it's okay, but I feel like they're kind of hamming it up a little bit, which is fine.
Are you talking
which
about
is
that?
fine. Yeah. I think
it's fun.
The thing that I'm very worried about, okay, and this might just be me, I am worried about how edgelordy they get with this, because the thing that immediately made me worried was when I saw Barrett in darkness wearing sunglasses, and I was like, oh. Just the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and I was like, oh. Like, I don't want them to be like Heidegger. Heidegger's in it, and Heidegger used to be a little fat guy that used to go, yeah, ha, 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 and people used to take the mick out of his voice and his laugh. But you look at him in the latest trailer, and he looks trim.
Right,
he looks like...
I said this. I watched the trailer when it came out, and I turned to my flatmate and was like, who the hell is that? Because remember, I've only played Crisis Core, which has Heidegger as, again, a short fat guy in a Hawaiian shirt. Who the hell is this guy?
Heidegger in the original wore like a big green suit and used to throw his head back and laugh, and then Rufus comes in and basically tells him to shut up every time he laughs. Palmer looks like Palmer, but Palmer was a little fat guy as well. And the funny thing is that I don't know how I feel about that kind of thing. I think that the humour, that's the thing I'm mostly worried about, I think, is that Final Fantasy is one of these series where, like Advent's Children, it was so edgy. One of the things I loved was I watched that in English first, because I watch most Japanese things in Japanese now. Like, I can understand a little bit of Japanese, like enough of Japanese to get by, but also like I prefer sub usually. Only reason being, if you like the dub, that's really cool, but only reason being is that if you do understand a bit of Japanese, it sometimes comes across a bit clearer, and a lot of the time when you design a character, you tend to think about the voice actor you've got in mind. It's very much like writing a book. So sometimes they fit a bit better. I'm not saying always. I think some dubs are better than subs. I think some subs are better than dubs. I try everything. But one of my favourite quotes from the English translation of Advent Children is Tifa is talking to Cloud, and she says, "Oh, you've been wasting time and stuff like that. And, you know, you've been worrying, and you've not been focusing on the future enough." And one of the best things she says is, obviously, a lot of the translations don't kind of translate very well, and if you dilly-dally in English, it means you sort of mess around, or you're like wasting your time, you're knocking about, not doing a lot. Tifa says, dilly-dally shilly-shally.
Yeah, I mean, I never really got that.
There's nothing to get, it's just a really bad translation. And then later on, Cloud goes, guess I lost some weight from all that dilly-dallying. You're just like, no, you can't. It's not. It makes sense, but it's really embarrassing. And I think there's a lot of that. Like, there's a bit where the Yuffie lands in Advent's Children, and she goes, "Who's been stealing our materia?" And then Tifa goes, "Oh, the bad guys, naturally." And Yuffie, obviously the voice actor is like, "No, I need you to sound annoyed." The voice actor goes, "Ooh!" It's just the worst moment. And it's one of those things where you're like, like, I'm trying to enjoy it. And I did enjoy it, but I felt like a lot of Final Fantasy is the comedy. And I'm so worried that with 7, they're going to try and be too edgy, that a lot of that gets lost. Like, I like the fact that you've got the whole Honeybee Inn thing and the dress up, but one of the things I noticed that's conspicuously absent from the trailer is the point in the original game where you have to do a squat off against 3 bodybuilders who dress as ladies, which is cool. But yeah, I'm curious to see if they do that stuff. I mean, one of the other things is there was a lot of humour just in general between characters. You know, there's this really great scene, I hope they keep it, where, for example, this is just a little example, and there's lots of this throughout the game, just peppered in there, but there's a bit where you land in Aerith's church, and Reno is there from the Turks. He walks across the flowers, then turns to the soldiers and says, "Oh, and by the way, don't step on the flowers." and they all go, "Whoa, you just stepped on the flowers," and there's this really sweet humour to it that kind of it doesn't detract from the seriousness. Like the whole feuding between Barrett and Cloud at the start of the game, where there's this whole sort of like jokey commentary between the two of them, and this rivalry. I really, really like that. So I hope they don't lose that for this edgy sort of thing where they're trying to, like, if you try and make a character cool, they're usually not cool. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I'm literally just going to say, the best example I have seen of this being done right, with the jokes actually translating into English, and it actually having a sense of humour, despite being about incredibly dark subject matter. Yes, I'm talking about Danganronpa again. I am very nearly done with the second game. And it's just, the dialogue manages to be funny, and there's even a Rickroll joke in there somewhere, which was most likely not in the original Japanese. And there is some incredibly dark stuff going on, and I'm not spoiling because it caught me really off guard, so I think it's better if anybody is going to play it, it's like spoiler free. But because of that contrast, when you get to one of the deaths and you're just like, oh, holy shit, what happened here? Because it's just such a big contrast. And it's just like, we need proper translations, and we don't need it to be edgelords all the time. We need jokes about Rickroll, because it was genuinely funny.
Yeah, I mean, I like when a series isn't too edgy, and I worry that that's the kind of route they're taking now. Like, the way Cloud talks, yeah, right, okay.
I mean, that's
I don't want
the vibes I got from the original game, I ain't gonna lie.
See, for me, he comes across at the start of the game like a bit of a cocky idiot.
Yeah.
Who thinks, he's like, I don't care about the world, I'm just here to get paid. But underneath that, there's like this other layer where like Tifa sort of says, you did promise, and he's like, oh yeah, I guess I made a promise after all. And there's like this kind of sarcastic jerkiness, but it's kind of like everyone knows he's a bit of a jerk. And nobody is saying like, wow, he's so cool, I wish I was like Cloud. They're kind of saying like, no, Cloud, you're a bit of a jerk. Like there's elements of that. And as the game goes on, he softens and kind of like becomes his own person. He stops pretending to be cool and just kind of is himself. Like the whole thing with, there's a bit where he and Barrett butt heads over payment to do with his contract, for example. And it's kind of funny, but he's also kind of a jerk because Barrett says it's money for Marlene's college fund. And like there's this comedy at the fact that Cloud is a jerk and he's very superficial, and people take the mick out of his spiky hair and the fact that he's clearly spent too long on himself. And I'm like, yeah, I agree. I think that's funny. What does detract from that though is when you see like someone on a really cool motorbike dropping into an arena and spinning around going, hey, one last dance, huh? And you're like, oh god, like don't go over the edge into... The cool moments are cool because they're isolated and they're not intended to be cool. They just happen to... Like, it's a bit like if you have someone who's naturally dressing in a way that you go, oh wow, that's a really cool style, as opposed to like someone's dad who dresses like a punk and goes, hey everyone, I love Blink 187. What's that song again? What's my age again? I miss you, I miss you. Like, no, it's not cool. You know, you're cool if you do things by accident. Don't intend to be cool.
It's like if the Walking Dead game tried to be like super hardcore and edgy all the time, and then you've got, wasn't it like Disco Broccoli, I think was the thing that popped up in season 4, and throwing shade at the utter crap that was season 3. It's like, you can't be serious all the time.
Yeah.
So you end up with Final Fantasy 15.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, is that the sense of humour is something that brings me back to Final Fantasy. I mean, a lot of the stuff I love, I really like Final Fantasy VIII, which I know isn't everyone's favourite, but one of my favourite characters from that game was Zell. He was a funny, sweet character with just this really interesting angle, and there was a lot of sweetness and innocence to his backstory and his mother, and he wasn't from like this tragic backstory where everyone had died and he was like slumming it and miserable. His mum lived in a different town, she constantly asked you if he was eating right and he wouldn't let you in his room because he was embarrassed. Like, that kind of sweetness allows me to go, okay, this world's a real world where people are living. And 7 has that too with elements, but people need to realise that comedy is part of the reason people love it.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I think the trailer does look amazing.
Oh, it looks great. Red 13 looks great.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at the side-by-sides, people have been doing side-by-sides on Reddit between what the characters used to look like in Don Kino's mansion as opposed to now, and it is like, it's crazy how much technology has come on in that time.
One complaint, wasn't Cloud's dress originally like this really ugly purple and now it's like black and white?
It was purple. One of the things you could do is actually, I'm curious to see how they deal with this, but in the in the original game, when you have that scene, there's like modifiers you can get based on what you do in different areas to get different parts of the outfit, and there is a chance that the Don will pick you, but you can raise your percentage of chance of being picked based on how good the items you get are. So for example, if you help someone in the toilet, they'll give you an item that you can then exchange, or like it'll be like based on how you help them, you can get like a disinfectant, a perfume, or a deodorant. And then like there's a bit where you can get a necklace if you do an extra thing for this guy who wants to see what's in a vending machine. And like the dress itself, you have to give instruction on what you want. And I think it's like something that shimmers and is silky and stylish, and you get like the best dress. And if the Don picks you, you have a slightly different scene where you're inside his room. But I'm curious again to see how much of that they carry over, because there's stuff, for example, that I don't know if you could get away with now. Like, he's actually got, I don't know if you remember, but he's actually got a sex dungeon.
Yeah.
And there is a sex dungeon. Behind his bed, if you look behind his bed, is a hyper.
Right.
Like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that you think, can you still do this? Are you going to do this? Is Mark Hamill going to do this?
Like, a lot of people were surprised they were keeping the Honeybee Inn entirely, really, because isn't there a scene in the original one where Cloud kind of passes out somewhere and then wakes up in a hot tub with a bunch of guys?
Yeah, there is a scene where you have like this weird flashback situation, and you wake up to a big guy with a moustache slapping you, and it's kind of implied that you have had sex with him.
Huh.
There is also.
Well, I kind of hope they cut that.
Well, it depends on how they actually deal with it, because I think it's one of those things where like, if you do stuff in a certain way, like if it's implied that Cloud is the weird one in these situations, and like he's the one being odd, because I think like that scene, that dress-up scene where he's being sort of fine-tuned by the guy who runs the Honeybee Inn, I think that looks great, because it's just, it does something, it takes a spin on something that they used to do, but it does it in a really positive way, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see how they do that. There is one interesting thing in the Honeybee Inn where if you look through a certain door, you can see a really weird, it's meant to be kind of like a kinky scene, but they actually, through dialogue boxes and this really eerie music, they basically tell you everything that's going to happen in the game.
Oh, okay, I never got that.
Yeah, it's all in like little codes and like messages, but there's stuff like the king will fall by this person, and like they're little sayings. But if you think about the plot of the game and then listen to them, they make sense. It's basically saying what's going to happen, which is really a nice touch. I think it's one of those games where you can tell that Final Fantasy VII was a labour of love.
Yeah.
And there is so much to see and do. And I really hope we get that with the remake.
Yeah, I don't want them to sanitize it, but at the same time, I want this like the example we just gave there of like Cloud waking up in the hot tub. Like, I hope it's more of a like, oh, drunken misadventure, awkward one night stand, rather than, oh my god, he slept with another man. That's just kind of what I'm worried about. It's like,
yeah,
Persona 5 was really, really good in every aspect, apart from the predatory gay guys in Shinjuku. And I think it turned up at the beach at one point as well. But it was literally, the game was doing so well, and then it just added creepy predatory gay dudes in there. It's like, did you really need to do that? We could have just had some normal guys, but no, we're just going to go with the horrible stereotype. That's kind of the thing I hope they avoid.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I think there's an issue of, especially in modern day culture, I think a lot of the stuff that they did back then was kind of... There's a point where, for example, and I don't mean any offence by saying this, but there is a point, and I'm sure it wasn't meant to be offensive to anyone. I think it was just a throwaway comment. But there is a point where you infiltrate the Shinra building, and you're running round stairs after stairs after stairs after stairs. It's like it's played for gags. You're going up and down flights of stairs, basically in like a solid circle for a good 10 minutes. And at one point, you're running up, and it's you, Tifa, and Barrett, and you're running up, and every now and then one of them will stop and take a breath, or like someone will add some filler text, how long do these stairs go for? Or I'm tired, I can't make it, I'm going to go back down, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
There's a bit where you get 3/4 up, and again, I don't mean any offence, I'm sure they didn't mean it in this way, but I don't think you can say this now. You get 3/4 of the way up, Barrett says, I can't make it, I'm heading back down, and Tifa says, stop being such a retard.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a product of the times, I think, because obviously, 1997 this came out, wasn't it?
I believe 1996, 1997, yes.
Yeah, so it would have been the kind of thing that was acceptable to say back then, but it'll probably get cut, and to be honest, I don't think we're losing anything by it getting cut. And it's just kind of the stuff that I hope is handled with the Honeybee in. It's like, I'm pretty sure in Fallout New Vegas, I don't think it made it into the end game for whatever reason, but there was going to be a side quest where whoever you're playing as the courier, I don't think you have to be male, it can be male or female. You get into a drinking contest with Kath, and you wake up and find that you've like accidentally married her with the king like officiating it. And then that's why I just be like, oh my god, like I've had drunken misadventure, not kind of I've like slept with a guy, oh my god, how horrible.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is the way they play it in the game is that I think what they're I can see what they're trying to do, but like I hope they do it in the right way. It's like with that whole retard comment, you can very easily replace that word for moron and it will still have the same impact.
Yeah, exactly.
And likewise with that scene, you can make it out that Cloud has come onto that guy.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, whoa, you're not my type. You're a lovely guy, but like the whole thing of it being a case of no, this guy is not predatory because he happens to be gay. In actuality, it's a misunderstanding because of X, Y, and Z, and no one is predatory. Do you know? I think that's the thing. Is like you say, there is a right and wrong way of handling this stuff, and I think I've heard good things about how they handle the actual idea of the terrorism, which sounds kind of interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, I've heard that they kind of address the whole thing because obviously back then it was kind of problematic, but we're now living in a society where terrorism is much more rife.
Yeah.
But there's this whole bit where, you blow up the reactors and it's kind of hinted at that people have died. And Barrett kind of says at the time, like, well, the ends justify the means. And it's a little bit like, do they? Especially now with what we know about terrorism. But now apparently there's this whole debate about that where it's kind of addressed this idea of like, well, what is worth doing for a cause and what isn't. And I think that's interesting. I think it could be cool. It's a very relevant thing to talk about. And I know some people are going to be saying, oh, politics in games. I'm not saying that you should be... I think the issue is that people don't mind hearing about politics in games. They just don't want to be made to feel like crap. Like if you have this, and I can get behind that. I think most people are actually quite keen on seeing politics in games because we can all relate to something if it's closer to real life. That being said, if you make a big orange bloke and call him Donald Bump and say that everyone who voted for him is a jerk, like, you're kind of lecturing, and I can see why people are upset, and you shouldn't be shocked if they are. You might think, for example, I don't think, I wouldn't vote for Trump. I don't align with that pathway. That being said, I am not going out of my way to lecture other people about something that's already happened and their own viewpoints. The only way that you can have a conversation with someone about what they view and how you view something is to be respectful of their views, to hear them out and then say your own piece. But to scream stuff at them through media they can't respond to, I can see why people get annoyed. So I think it's a case of, if you're saying, okay, well, we do need to have this discussion about eco-terrorism and whether or not this is right or wrong in the context of the game, then that's really cool. If you say, and if you disagree with us in any way, shape or form, you're a moron, also we're clearly talking about this, then people are going to get upset because no one likes to get called an idiot during their escapist media.
I mean, I think it's more just that people, like, from my personal perspective, it's like, I'm fine with having politics or, whatever in games, but I want it to be done well. I don't want it to be preached at. I don't want it to be, like, the sole identity of the game. I want it to kind of make its point, make it intelligently, and then just kind of like leave it be. Don't just be like constantly hammering it down our throats. Just be like,
Yeah.
you know, here it is.
Yeah, and I think that's totally justified. I think that's the thing at the end of the day. Like, if you do something in the right way, people tend to be behind it. I mean, a really good example of this is people have been talking a lot about Doctor Who recently.
I mean, I dropped off a few years ago, but what's the complaining about now?
Now, I'm not going to lie. I really like sci-fi. I mean, I'm British. We're both from England, so it's a big deal in the UK. And it's a case of I've always loved sci-fi. I've always loved stories. I've always loved good storytelling, and I don't think that's a revelation for anyone. I like a good story. Like it's the way things are. But the thing is that what they've been doing, especially recently, is they've been making really obvious plots that basically make people feel awful, and then saying, "Oh well, yeah." I mean, there was one plot where it's an alternate Earth, but the reason people are dying is because climate change killed our Earth.
It's just a bit too much.
Yeah, like, you know, or like last week's one, and again, you know, we'll be talking about a few spoilers here, so bear with. But last week's one, I believe, was that because of plastics in the oceans, a plague has started that's now killing people.
It's like, if you're gonna do this kind of metaphor, you've gotta not bury it, but you've just gotta be a bit more smart about it. You've got to just be like, we need to go with a clever analogy for this kind of thing that doesn't break immersion and suspension of disbelief and doesn't feel like people are being lectured to, rather than just going, everyone knows plastic in the ocean's bad. We came here for sci-fi and monsters. We didn't come here to be lectured at by what we're bombarded by on the news all day, every day, because we know.
Well, do you know what I really surprised me that I really, really enjoyed? And it generally surprised me. I don't know if you've played any of it yet, and honestly, I know if people are listening to this, they'll be like, really? But bear with me, I will explain this, because I wasn't sure at first either. Death Stranding?
No, I haven't. It was on my radar, and I think it clashed with a few other big releases. But that being said, I am very excited about a Kojima plot with Norman Reedus and the Funky Fetus, and just being a glorified postman. I am totally down for that.
It is. Now, it's kind of been divisive with people, but it's...
Please no spoilers if you can help it, because I would quite like to play this unspoiled.
Oh no, I won't say many. I won't say any at all, actually. But I'm not very far in the plot. I won't say anything that will cause any kind of spoiler per se. I'll talk a little bit about the very basic stuff you know from the second you start the game, and the overarching influences in there. But I'm not going to say anything that will spoil anything for anyone, because to be quite honest, I still don't know what's going on. I'm still quite early in the game. But the main sort of overarching message is that you're in this world after everything has kind of gone to hell, and these Death Stranding are around. The incident is called the Death Stranding, but that's when all of these weird, what you've seen in the trailer, these sort of tendril-like people that are attached to strings appeared, you know, this black tendril mass of people. And if they basically come in contact with a human person, then they cause a massive explosion called a void out, and that can wipe out all the life in an area. And the whole thing is that we had a society where everything was working great, everyone was connected. They're basically a bit like the internet. Then these things turned up, everything fell apart. We're in America for the game, the entirety of America fell apart, and everyone basically said, look, we can get by on our own now. And then you're Sam Porter Bridges, you work for the Bridges Company, and they basically say, look, we want to reunite America. The only way we can do that is if you travel around and basically meet people and encourage them to join our new group. And it's all about how people see one another and how humans connect and how we're stronger as a team and how people can be, alone and you can help them. It really restored my faith in humanity, as silly as it sounds. I saw it and I thought, oh, this is just going to be, let's be honest, when I saw it, I thought, really, we're just delivering packages? And I love Hideo Kojima's games. I'm a big fan of Hideo Kojima. I wrote a letter to Hideo Kojima as a project for my primary school. I think he's great, but I saw this and thought, really? I don't know if I'm going to like this. But it does things with music. It does things with gameplay and the environment and the characters around you that just sticks with you. It's had this profound impact on me about, yes, you're right, we can achieve great things if we connect, and yes, there are going to be things that detract us from that, but at the same time, what the human race longs to do is to be accepted and be together and to understand that and try to understand one another regardless. And it's this really great feel-good game where you're basically, delivering packages, and the gameplay is kind of, once you've got it down pat, you've got it down pat. There are challenges, and it is really difficult sometimes, but you are basically delivering packages for the most part. But you've got this really beautiful overarching narrative and this wonderful world, and it is saying something about the current political nature of the world, about people being distant from one another. But it doesn't ram it down your throat. It's not saying it's anyone's fault. It's not saying you're an idiot because you disagree with this. It's just saying, look, these things happen. I think that the best thing we can do is all work together to find some common ground and love one another. And you think, yeah, it's a really wholesome, beautiful message that encourages you to talk to people you care about. And I think it's great. I honestly, I'm very surprised I enjoyed it as much as I did. I went into it thinking I wouldn't. I wasn't really interested in the hype train. If anything, I was kind of negative towards the game. Played it, love it. Love it.
Nice. Well, I'm really glad. I will pick it up at some point when I am out of my Danganronpa hole. Well, I then go into the Persona 5 hole, but anyway. But I will pick it up because I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, I think you'd love it. It's one of those games where the gameplay itself, like I say, is kind of difficult. It can be frustrating at times, but it's so worth it for the character development, and just, it's such a beautiful game. The things it does with music is just wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. But that's kind of what I've been playing recently, to be honest. I've been playing that. I've got a few indie games I've been playing as well. But what about yourself? What have you been playing? I know you're in Danganronpa.
Yeah, I'm right at the end of Danganronpa 2 Goodbye Despair. Yeah, the last case hit me like an absolute truck, because I was just like, this is considerably darker than anything we've seen before. And again, I'm not giving spoilers because it is so much better unspoiled. But yeah, I'm really pleased with it. Like, I don't remember the last time I enjoyed a game more. So yeah, I'm excited to go on to V3.
So if someone hasn't played it, for example, what exactly is Danganronpa?
So think Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney mixed with the Battle Royale. So
okay.
So basically, I think all of the game have the same sort of premise, because I don't know anything about V3 yet, because I've deliberately stayed unspoiled, but it's a group of students who are trapped in a location. So the first one is that they're locked inside a school. The second one is that they're trapped on a series of islands, like tropical islands. And they're essentially told, you are all prisoner here. The only way to be free is to kill someone and get away with it. And you're judged in a class trial, which is where the Phoenix Wright comparison comes in, where you basically will decide who the killer is, and basically if everyone else guessed wrong, then the killer goes free, or if they guess correctly, then the killer gets executed in a variety of grimly disturbing ways. And the writing's good, the characters are good, and this goes for the first game as well, they're all excellent, the pace is on point. Artwork's gorgeous. Honestly, just play them. I waited years to play these, but they are honestly excellent.
See, I'm one of those people where I've always looked at Danganronpa, and I've looked at the reviews, especially on Steam, and they're amazing. They're overwhelmingly positive. But I've never played one, and I've always been eager to play one.
Do it. Honest to God, do it. Like, I have sat up until 2 a.m, finishing the last game, finishing the first one, because I was just like, I don't care. I have to find out what happens. I stayed up until midnight last night, finishing the last case, and then a thing happened. I actually swear to God, I went, I hate that I am an adult with a job because I want to know what's going on.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, I'm like that with some things. Like Death Stranding is one of those games where I can't talk and play. Most games, I tend to have quite a lot of people I talk to, so I'll be watching a podcast or watching a video, or I'll be on mic talking to someone. But Death Stranding is one of those games where what I really need to do is say, right, I'm not coming to work for about 3 days. I'm going to sit here in my own filth and just fall into this rabbit hole until it's done, you know? Yeah. But I haven't had that time yet. I've been playing a lot of stuff. I've had a couple of indie games recently that the reviews will be going out on YouTube, but it's been such an interesting... There's been some really interesting games, like a couple of really, really good indie games, a couple of not so good ones, but I'm eager to see what people think of a couple of these, because some of them I think do things in a different way that I think is quite novel. I was playing one called 7th Sector. The review is out now. By the time this actually goes live, there will also be a live play of Stretchbot, because the embargo is up on that tomorrow, and I've got a couple other bits to play as well. But it's just a case of, I like playing something that takes risks, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because I find a lot of stuff now is kind of by the numbers, and I'd rather you take a risk and maybe struggle with it than do something completely by the book that's the same as everything else.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, because it's just, I get excited at the idea of new premises. And don't get me wrong, I like playing older stuff too. I'm a big fan of things that work. You know, if something's popular, it's popular for a reason. But at the same time, if you do something new and novel that I haven't seen before, then I'm really eager with that, and I really want to get on board with that. But, I mean, what about yourself? What's the next one you're waiting for? I know you're waiting for Persona, right?
Persona 5 The Royal, yeah, I've stayed away from all spoilers. I literally know nothing about what's happening. I've only seen like the official trailers, but it's just made me realise how much I loved Persona 5. And yes, you will be getting asked from me before it comes out, ranking who is best waifu from 1 to 10. And I'll give you a spoiler now, number 1 ain't going to be Makoto, I'm just telling you.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, now I want to sort of go over this briefly, because Personas, I've only played one Persona. The Persona I played had a character in it called Skullboy, and I haven't finished it.
That might be one of the spin-offs, because I don't recognise it.
I don't know if it's Skullboy or not. It's the one with Morgana, the cat?
Oh no, that is 5, that is 5.
Is that 5? Okay, well, so far of 5, I've played a bit of 5, and the main premise is, for anyone who hasn't played the series, you're kind of able to see the innermost personalities of people and go into their, I can't remember what it's called, it's like a palace, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
You go into their palace, and you can then change things about their ego in order to change their outward perspective. So a really basic one at the start that doesn't really give you any spoilers. There's a teacher that's a bit of a creep, that's creeping on students, but is also pushing aggressively towards others, nearly drives one to suicide. And so you go into their mind palace over the series of a multiple load of days, and then you affect them internally so that they then go and confess and feel the guilt that they need to feel. So you're kind of like righting wrongs inside people's heads, but at the same time you can also explore Japan and do little challenges to raise different aspects, and you capture different people's personas as well. You can, a bit like Pokemon, you can use as like backup fighters, and they influence your fighting styles and stuff. But I'm gonna be honest.
A dating sim essentially, and it's great.
I'm gonna be honest. The thing I like, there are two things. There's something I love about it, and there's something I hate about it. So you're a bit of an expert on the series, so I'll run it by you, and I just want to see what you kind of think and whether or not, you know, people listening kind of agree. Now, the thing I love about it is I think it's doing something right with characterization, because I was playing, and this kind of also has the negative in it. Yeah, but the positive is that I genuinely cared about these characters.
Oh,
I was genuinely surprised at how much I cared about these characters. I did not expect to care about these characters at all. I was surprised at how much I wanted to carry on playing. The negative is that I felt it railroaded me for so long. Like, you can do individual things outside of the game. So you can say, okay, well, we've got to do this objective, but in the meantime, you can, you know, level up your guts by eating these certain things. Or when I say guts, I don't mean your stomach. I mean like your gutsiness. You can get different weapons. You can increase your friendship with characters, but you're on a timer. And I felt like it was so railroady. Like, I wanted to do like 3 or 4 of these things, or get into a bit of a loop of going, okay, I want to raise this friendship and that friendship and get this up and get this stat up. But instead, a lot of the time, you just have to do something during the day, which is clicking through text boxes that have no effect on anything. And then the cat says, okay, time for bed. And you go to bed.
I hate Morgana. I don't know what kind of nerfing he's going to get in Royal, but I hope he does, because literally it's become a meme at this point.
See, I don't know anything about the subreddit or the culture around the games. I just know that I felt there was so much I wanted to do with this great world they were giving me, and instead I was just like, okay, I'm sitting through text, I'm going to bed. And it was so frustrating.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it's mostly that is what Persona does. If it's not Morgana telling you to go to bed, it's. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, you just decided to go to bed. Makoto just decided to go to bed. It's like they deliberately lock you off from doing too much because otherwise you could just like save scum and be stupid OP. So it's basically a staple, just with less annoying cats.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing, is I just wanted to see the game evolve more. Like, you gave me this amazing world. I want to do more of it, but I'm always on a timer and you're not giving me enough time to explore. It felt a little bit like you'd given me a toy box as a kid, but I've got 35 seconds to examine the toys and then I need to go to bed.
Yeah.
And I needed more than that. But I mean, you'd recommend Persona, I guess, because that's kind of like one of your favourite series, isn't it, Persona?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I say, because obviously 1 and 2 are very, very different. Not that they're not worth playing, but they are very different to 3, 4, and 5. But quite honestly, I'd say 5 is the most user-friendly for completely new players. But if you're if you're good at JRPGs and stuff like that, I'd say start with 3 FES, go to Persona 4 the Golden, then pick up Persona 4 the Royal when it's out, because it will be really frustrating for you to go back to the old games. But
yeah,
it will hold up really well. I would even say the Persona 4 anime is. I would say I like you better in the anime. I like him in the game. But honestly, out of 3, 4, or 5, like you could just play any of them, and they're all excellent games.
Well, sounds good. I think we've definitely got a few recommendations for everyone to play at the moment. But I think it's about time that we wrap up there. But thank you very much for joining me again today, Vicky. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, and same here.
I believe in the near future we've got something to look forward to in regard to Neopets.
Yeah, so basically what happened is I bought a whole bunch of plushies for a stupid amount of money off someone on Reddit, and they have now apparently put them in the post, so I'm waiting to get that package through. But I am going to do a little unboxing video in about 3 weeks' time, because basically I bought a load of the they had McDonald's toys at one point, like in the early 2000s, and they came in little blind bags. You don't actually know, you know what species you're getting, but you don't know what colour you're getting. So I thought it would be funny to do a little unboxing video and, you know, be like super serious about this, like a real YouTuber, and just be like, yeah, I'm opening a bunch of McDonald's toys, come and join me. Yeah, give it about 3 weeks for them to ship, and yeah, we'll do that.
That sounds good. I mean, I have no idea what the hell I'm going to be looking at, so you can talk me through this as you open them.
Absolutely, it'll be great fun.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for joining me, Vicky. And I hope everyone you've enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe if you have. It really helps out the channel and helps us to keep creating brand new stuff for you. Other than that, don't forget to head over to nextstepnick.com for all the latest news, reviews and articles. And I know you're going to be writing for me in the near future as well, Vicky.
Yes, I've got a couple of articles coming up. And just because I have literally just realised it is the 20th anniversary of the Sims franchise this year. And, like, I know there's been a bit of talk about how The Sims 5 is potentially going to be multiplayer, which immediately sets my antisocial self going, no, please stop. But I think there's some good discussion to be had there, because there is a very big online community that is very open to sharing stuff, just not necessarily, like, kind of Fallout 76 style. So, yeah, there'll be a discussion on that.
Okay, sounds interesting to me. Well, you can look forward to that as well, guys. If you do want to see all the latest articles, don't forget to subscribe over on nextstepnick.com so you'll get all of the latest updates when they come out. The only thing left to do, though, is to thank Vicky for joining me. Thank you very much.
Of course, as always.
And we'll catch you again next week. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye.